And welcome back to Little Cuts, our weekly mini-sode where we
And
dig into the things that we've
reading.
been watching and playing recently. I'm Terry. Oh, and reading!
I'm Maribeth.
Wow.
And this week we are
Triple
talking
threat.
a Norse giant
I'm
and his
Terry.
gay Oh, you said playing, and now I know what it is now. A Norse giant and his gay family. A movie about men being trash. Southern Gothic cryptids. Ooh. Lesbian space necromancers. And a movie based on a podcast joke. Oh, I love thoughts about that one. I can't wait to talk about that.
Wow. Oh, I know. We're really
It's a
like
lot,
running
but
the gamut
now that
here,
I think I
have
know
to
what
say.
this Norse giant and his gay family are, tell me about what this is. What's that?
Okay. This is a reach. It's a reach. However, I am firmly convinced that all the men in God of
I
War
like this
Ragnarok
reading.
are
Continue.
queer. Because so this is the sequel to 2018's God of War, which saw Kratos go from being a horrible, misogynistic, sexual assault, rapey sort of
Boy.
anti-hero to being
Not daddy. It's
Dad?
not, and it's not a joke, y'all. He
Boy.
actually is a father.
he is a father, and you know,
No, I've just watched a lot of
did
people
have you
play
played
it, so I'm
that
familiar
God of War?
with it. I just haven't played it myself.
Okay. I really liked it, but like this series is not exactly great for women characters, I would say. Because God of War and starts with the fridging of Kratos' wife, and the whole plot of it is to basically carry her ashes up to a mountain, kill a bunch of gods along the way, and in doing so have started Ragnarok. Well, they've started gosh, I am going to screw up saying this word. Fimbulwinter, which is like a 3-year long winter that began at the conclusion of the
Okay.
previous game and leads into Ragnarok. And spoiler alert for those who haven't played the first game, I'm sorry I'm going to spoil something. You find out that Atreus, Kratos' son, is also known by Loki, and he is half giant, as well as being a fourth god and fourth human, I think is how that genealogy works based on the two families. And this game picks up like I think 3 years later, and they're in the midst of Fimbulwinter, and they're trying to survive. They've in the first game pissed off Freya, and now she is a vengeful woman because that's all we only have two. There's only two female characters that I've seen so far in this game. We have Freya, who's a vengeful mother because you killed her son, and then we have and I don't even know how to pronounce her name. Where is it?
That's a really bad sign. The only other woman is. Wait, where's her name? No one talks about her by name. Oh, okay.
Well,
How far into
she
the game
just
are you?
got introduced, and
Oh, cool. Love that the second
I'm about
female character is introduced
12 or
that far
13
into the
hours
game.
in.
I know it's like a 40-hour game, right? But still.
Yeah, but her story is all about being, gosh, I really wish I could figure out what her name is. I'm going to do some digging while I talk. Her story is that she is like, she has her own prophecy, because they find out the prophecy at the end of the first game, and yada yada yada, he's Loki, he's Kratos is gonna die, yada yada yada, he has this that thing, and then Atreus
Yeah, that
/
sounds
Loki meets Angrboda, played by Layla De Leon Hayes, and her whole thing is that she has a prophecy, and it's basically to be part of his story. And so I'm like, okay, we're getting cringe here again, because like part of her like whole ethos, at least in this beginning part, maybe it'll subvert my expectations, I don't know, but given the track record for women in these games, I'm not expecting it. But she's really upset because now her part of the prophecy is over, and now her story is coming to an end. And I'm like, because of a male character, I'm like, this is awkward. But all the men in Atreus' life, his father, the head of Mimir, who is like strapped to Kratos' ass, they bicker like married couple. They both have advice for Atreus, and they both end up acting as if they're parents to him. Even though Mimir keeps calling everyone brother, there is like, he is giving advice. He is telling Kratos to calm down and to like not push Atreus away. He gives advice to Atreus. There are the two dwarves that were introduced in the first game that are brothers, and they act like gay uncles for him. And then you meet Tyr, the other god of war, who is like this tall, gangly dude who doesn't want to be a god of war and doesn't want to fight anymore. And there's like a couple scenes where they're all having dinner. It is literally like 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 men just sitting around a table and Atreus. And it's like, this is gay brunch. Like, I could look at these people and be like, okay, you two are these people at the gay brunch. You are this guy at the gay brunch. You are the two couples that are bickering over how to raise a kid.
Love it.
Like,
are you playing
pretty
mainly
gay
as
in my
Atreus,
opinion.
or are you playing as Kratos? For most of it, okay.
No, you play as Kratos for most of it, but there are a couple times where the game follows Atreus, because the premise of this one is that if the first game in the Norse mythology is Kratos becoming a father and trying to grapple with that, this one is about a kid coming of age and trying to understand where he's coming from, not knowing that the prophecy is also going to potentially end with his father. So while he is like struggling with sense of identity and where his place in the world and teenage rebellion, his father is like trying to spend as much time with him as possible because he is afraid that the prophecy is going to end with his death. So very male dominated game. A lot of problematic aspects so far. Maybe they'll subvert it with the female characters, but it's a lot of fun. And if you enjoyed playing the first game, well,
I was gonna say, there's a lot
the previous
of
game, I
God of
should
War
say, because
games
this is
at
like
point.
9 games deep, I think, at this point. There's a lot of them.
Too, right? Like,
this is a lot of fun. I'm having a great time with it. It's just, oh yeah, it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. They somehow, because I thought the last game looked pretty, and this game sort of ups that ante a lot. So it's a lot of fun. I'm enjoying the story, even though, like I said, this game does not even pass the Bechdel test.
That's fine.
So
I mean, like, God of War to me is like
is
testosterone using game too. You know what I mean? It's just funny that it's like, well, I guess we're just gonna keep it status quo for now. Again, who knows? But it's just
who knows? But yeah, it's basically just a
yeah,
giant.
That's all right. I read that and I was like, what is this beautiful thing? And I was like, oh, okay. Hell yeah. So this is
speaking
like
about men and trash, what is this movie about men being trash?
So this is the new film Run, Sweetheart Run, directed by Shayna Festi, or Fest. I don't remember which one. It is out now on Prime Video, and it's good with a capital G. So this was a film that's been like stuck in like hell for a while because it premiered at, I believe it premiered at Sundance. It was supposed to it screened at Sundance in 2020. It was supposed to go to South by Southwest. The pandemic fucked it, and it's kind of just been stuck in a little bit of development hell since. I think there were some tweaks and things to the film as well, from like its initial conception to where it is now. But the film follows a woman played by Ella Balinska, who was the main lead in the Resident Evil series on Netflix. She was the adult Jade. But her name is Sherry. Yeah. She's a single mother and a pre-law student. She works at a law firm in LA. She's like dating, trying to just like live her life. Her boss says, oh shit, I have a client meeting. Can you go do it for me with this guy? It'll be fine. She goes. He's played by Pilu Asbeck, who was in Game of Thrones. He played Euron Greyjoy, and he's super charming. He's super sweet. They hit it off, and then she goes back to his house, and she escapes covered in blood. And it basically, we don't know what happens. They don't show it, but she's assaulted, and the rest of the movie follows her running through the streets of Los Angeles trying to survive the night from this guy. He's not human. He can smell her blood, and it is all about her basically trying to band with other women to help keep her alive through the night. It's really heavy-handed, but in a really good way. I mean, this movie it knows exactly what it's trying to do. It's like, men are shit, men and women won't get justice, but it's done in a really clever way in terms of it having like her running through Los Angeles all night trying to find ways to protect herself. She doesn't have shoes. Like, she's literally has nothing on her. No phone, nothing. And she's also trying to protect her daughter. And it goes to some, like, really fascinating places. And it's part of it that's hard for me is there's a lot of violence against women in this movie to a point where I'm like, is this what's the point? But at the same time, it does kind of show that how, especially rich white men in power can get away with whatever they want, and then women are just kind of fodder for the machine, basically. And it also, something that I also really liked about it was how it handles the idea of having your period. Because, you know, having your period, menstruation is like isn't really addressed a lot of times in movies unless it's like a comedy. Like, she's got her period. But here, menstruation is used as like she's bleeding on her period so he can smell her, but then she uses it kind of to her advantage in terms of like scent, which is really, I think, really cool. I think the problem that arises with that is that it just becomes very much like biological women imperative and talking about the power of like periods. And I think it's necessary and interesting to see that talked about, but it also does feel a little bit like it's trans exclusionary. And like, look, I understand that not every single movie can address every single like group and gender identity, but at the same time, in the year of our Lord 2022, and making a movie that is a lot of like based around like, oh, the biology of a woman is helping them survive, I think it's a little bit, there's something that like feels a little bit like underbaked about that concept, especially in like, you know, this idea of sisterhood with all these biological women, how do like trans women factor into it, and like transness isn't addressed at all in the movie, which I think was a choice. They didn't want to like add it to the mix, but it would have been nice to kind of see a little bit of that in there, because so much of it is about violence against women, and trans women experience violence at an even higher rate as well. But that's just, you know, a thought I had watching it was like, I really like how this is handling it, and it's based on the director's own kind of experience with sexual assault, and I think it handles the topic in a really interesting way that takes like sexual assault, rape, revenge narratives into like an interesting level. And I really enjoyed it. I just think there are some little new, like, it could be a little bit more nuanced, but, you know. But yeah, it's on Prime Video. I think it's heavy-handed, but done really well. I think Ella Balinska in the lead she's absolutely incredible. More roles for her, please. I think she's just so good at keeping up that energy. Because, like, she's on screen almost the entire movie, and she's in a constant state of emotional turmoil, and she doesn't lose it at all, which I think is really impressive. And then Pulu Aspect is just downright terrifying. He's really good at playing villains. I was surprised by it, because I was like, this was supposed to come out like 2 years ago, if they just getting dumped. But no, it's really good. I think it just got screwed over by the pandemic and the timing, but it's definitely worth checking out. Yeah, that's Run, Sweetheart, Run. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I've been, you know, I forgot that it came out, honestly. Like, I'd gotten like press releases for it, and it was just during a really bad time, and then I forgot that it came out, and so I was like, I keep thinking about it when I'm at work or when I'm like in bed, is when I'm like, oh shit, I still need to watch that movie. So I'm glad to hear it's really good, because
yeah, definitely check it out.
I'm going to try to hopefully
I think it's really well done. I think it's a really cool like
hope.
portrait of Los Angeles. It's a really cool kind of like little vignettes almost, where she's like running through different groups of people and like experiencing different groups of people. But yeah, it's weird, but like in a good way. Okay, so Southern Gothic Cryptids,
awesome.
That's
cool.
That's like catnip for me. So what is this?
Okay, so I've talked about her on the podcast before, but
yes.
I love graphic novelist Abby Howard. I have been following her since Penny Arcade did a really poorly named reality competition called Strip Search, which was to find, the next comic, and she was on that. I fell in love with her. She's done a whole lot of webcomics. She's done a lot of graphic novels. There is, I don't know if you can see, but that cat up there, for those at home, is her cat as a stuffed animal. I love her work deeply. I have so much respect for her. She did a Kickstarter, like, I want to say 2 years ago, for a video game, a visual novel video game that she and her husband created, called Scarlet Hollow. And it started coming out last year, and we have 3 episodes out. It's an episodic visual novel. There's going to be 7 episodes. There's 3 episodes out. Episode 4 is supposed to come out before the end of the year. I've been wanting to play it, and I bought a Steam Deck, which is like a Switch but plays Steam games, kind of. And so I've been playing this at night in bed. And like I said, it's a visual novel, so there's not a whole lot of gamification in it. It's more about reading and making the choices, but there's some light RPG elements in it where you pick your traits. There's like a trait where you can talk to animals, and that will spawn different conversation topics. There's a trait where you can just be hot, and so you can flirt with everybody. There's a trait where like you have like a mystical knowledge, and so you are reading like weird events that are happening. And the premise behind it is that you are going home to meet, gosh, I want to say it's your cousin whose mother has passed away, and you're going there for the funeral. The funeral is going to be like at the end of the week, and so you are basically staying a week in this kind of Appalachia town where you're staying in a manor that is decrepit and falling apart. You sorry, 1 second. And you basically are trying to basically there's like a story that's going on, and there's like creatures that are preying on livestock. There's houses full of spirits. It's a sleepy town. You meet people in the town. You start to like get involved in like a mystery of what's going on. You can romance people. It's very queer friendly. Have my eyes set on this daddy, and he's named Oscar, and he is really cool. But yeah, there's like cryptids. There's some weird creatures in the forest. One of your friends is a YouTuber that has been documenting the weird cryptid phenomenon in the town, and there's some spooky stories. You make choices. You can decide. Your choices will end up deciding who lives, who dies, the story you see. They're very impactful changes. I'm not exactly sure what the choices are, because I've only played through it once, but like I'm very curious to see how it's all gonna pan out. And it's really good. Her writing is solid. It's hand-drawn animation. It looks gorgeous. I love it. And it's only available on PC, unfortunately, right now. But if you have a computer and you like visual novels, I highly recommend it. I believe the first episode is out for free. So you can download the first episode and play it for free. And that should probably get you hooked, because it has some really strong storytelling elements in it. And the creature design is creepy as fuck.
Images while you were talking, because you've talked about her before. And so, not Scarlet Horror, Scarlet Hollow. Mm-hmm. And Southern Gothic Cryptids. I mean, come on. Fuck yeah. Okay. Well, maybe I'll just make Steve download it on his computer, because he has a PC.
You should. It's great. Yeah. I love it. I cannot wait for episode 4 to come out. And they're short. Like I think so far I've spent about a little over an hour in each episode. I think I'm like between 3 and 4 hours into it. So it's not it's not going to be, I don't think, an incredibly long series, but
fuck yeah,
it's really interesting and the storytelling is fantastic. So highly recommended. But I gotta hear lesbian space necromancers. So, I gotta hear. What is this?
So, okay. I'm obsessed have been meaning to read this book / this series of books for a while, and I'm finally reading it. And this is the first book in the Locked Tomb series. This is called Gideon the Ninth by Tasmin Muir, I believe is how you pronounce her name. So this is the first book in a quadrilogy. There are going to be 4. There's a total of 4 books. The 4th one is coming out next year. But the first book came out in 2019, and it's YA, but it's good. It's a good horror YA. So it's like it's a YA book, but it's got a lot of gore in it. So this book takes place. look, I'm almost done with the first book, and I'm still trying to get a handle on the lore because it's a very complicated world, and the way that it's written is you're supposed to be in the position of this character who doesn't really know anything about like the way things are supposed to be in this universe. But essentially, it takes place in a solar system where there are 9 planets, and each planet is dedicated to a house, and this house is each dedicated to a certain kind of necromantic art. And of course, fucking course, we are in the 9th house, which is the house that's very scary, and everyone's scared of them because they're all very scary, and they protect the locked tomb, and no one knows what's in the locked tomb, and they're all just scary space necromancers who love to make giant things of skeleton. Like on the planet, the house of the 9th planet, like skeletons are doing all the farming and shit. Like it's, and so Gideon is has a mysterious background. She was dropped onto the 9th planet as a child. No one knows where she came from, and then she is basically trained as a servant to the house and is treated like shit by the princess Harrowhawk, who is like the princess of the 9th, basically. And then all of this shit happens. They hate each other, but they are summoned to the first planet to train in this, like, to train to become, like, mythical leaders of the people of this. Lectors is what they're called. And so, through a series of unfortunate events, Gideon is dragged along to be her cavalier, the necromancer's cavalier, basically, like, her protector, her bodyguard, and they all have a bunch of lies and secrets that are going into this. Gideon is a himbo. A female himbo is what me and my friend call her, a female himbo, because it's like this book is written in like this elegant prose of these like great family houses, and then fucking Gideon comes and is like, what in the fuck is all this weird bone shit? Like, it's very funny, this contrast of like, and so when when a lot of these like necromancers are talking about like arcane arts and stuff, Gideon, like, we don't know what's going on because Gideon doesn't know what's going on, so it's funny because you're like, who are all these people? Like, they're throwing around, like, yes, the Lord Undying. Necro Lord Prime is someone that's talked about a lot, and I still don't know who he is. But Gideon is a lesbian. She is not a necromancer, but she has a crush on her necromancer, who I believe is also a lesbian. So there's, like, people playing with dead bodies. There's some romance going on. And then it's mostly a murder mystery, but taking place in space with necromantic arts and revenant ghosts and, like... weird other things going on. It's fucking incredible. It's, again, lesbian space necromancers. It's awesome. It's gory. Like, and again, like, it's YA, but like, you know, there's a lot of like fucked up shit going on with bodies and things like that. And so I'm like 75% of the way done with the book. And I love it. I've been staying up too late reading it on my phone. It's so fun.
That's the best kind of book.
I think it scratches this itch of how much I love like murder mysteries, but makes it not like a stuffy murder mystery, but puts it in this really interesting context. And now I'm getting all these like really crazy answers to things that I've been wondering about this whole time, and it's such a fun read. I'm so excited to read the other 3. But yeah, that's Gideon the 9th. It's just gay and space.
Okay.
And it's just great.
Awesome.
It's
I'm adding that to my list. I gotta. That sounds like a lot of fun. The 9th,
because they're like such spooky bitches, they wear skull face paint all the time because it's part of like their uniform. They always have to have like the scare. They're like basically like death nuns is what they basically call themselves, and they always have to like they're always wearing all black and like a ton of bone jewelry and like bone accoutrement, and just have to look like spooky bitches all the time. And I love them. They're just like they're living the goth scary lifestyle.
Hell yeah.
Constantly. It's great. It's incredible. So,
love that.
Check it out, y'all. It's good as shit. Speaking about things that are good as shit, just kidding. What movie did we watch for a horror comedy this week?
Okay. Before we get to that, though, I want to make a slight correction. So, Scarlet Hollow is also playable on Mac OS, and it seems like it has a relatively low requirement. And the first episode is free, so you could at least try it on Steam. It's on Steam.
That
I think
brings
it's also
my
on
heart
itch.io.
joy. Okay, cool.
So,
my Mac having ass can
I just wanted to throw that out there. Yeah. There you go. I just want to make that correction because it is It is also out there. But, oh boy. Okay, so the film we're going to talk about started as a joke on the Smodcast, which is Kevin Smith and Scott Mosier's podcast. And they discussed an article featuring a Gumtree ad where a homeowner was offering a living situation free of charge if the lodger agrees to dress as a walrus. And the discussion went from there, resulted in like almost an hour of it being spent on telling hypothetical story based on this ad. And then Smith tweeted out walrus yes or walrus no if his fans wanted him to make this movie. They said yes. And so here we have Tusk, a movie that is about a podcaster who is an absolute dickhole, played by Justin Long, who goes to Canada and ends up
This made me never want to make
getting
a podcast
turned into a walrus.
again.
Yeah.
Because boy, oh boy, wow, the perspective on podcasters in 2013, not funny. I feel like they really thought they were doing something like, look, we're called the Not
The
See
funniest
Party. And I was just like, I'm so fucking sick of that stupid joke. Like,
seeing that now also in 2022 where we have the rise of neo-Nazis like becoming more visible, it's even less. It has aged even, I mean, it would have been offensive in my opinion then, but like now it's even like, ooh,
and like,
this is aged.
So I had never seen this before.
Worse.
Like, I knew about it. I knew it was the Walrus movie, and I think Kevin Smith is not my favorite. I think this movie kind of solidified that. I think he's a little bit too bro-y for my taste. I think he just is much too like, look at the bros making bro jokes about being bros, and it's just like, it's not for me. Not for me. I can see why people like that and can kind of vibe with that. I just don't think I can. You know, this movie's on so many lists for being like so fucked up and disturbing, and like, yeah, it's pretty fucked up that a guy gets turned into a walrus. Like this I will admit. But they really did try to make a movie when it could have just been a short film. You know what I mean? Like, this movie drags on for so long about things that like are completely unnecessary. And I'm just like, what? You just introduce a bunch of questions I don't have any answers to now about. There's like so many other things you could have like dedicated that runtime towards. Instead you just have Johnny Depp. What? Johnny Depp as like a weird Quebec cop telling stories for like 30 minutes as they eat like sliders, and I was like, what is this movie?
Yeah, you know, so here's the thing. I was actually enjoying this movie in the beginning when it was mostly Justin Long's character talking
Howard
with
Howe,
what's his name? Howard Howe, I think, played by Michael Parks. Like that, I was really into, and I was like, oh, Kevin Smith's doing some interesting things here by cutting back to the Justin Long's Wallace's girlfriend who he cheated on and is an absolute dick to. I was like, okay, there's some interesting things going on here. I'm digging this. And then after he gets turned into a walrus and we're getting introduced to Johnny Depp, and it just, I don't know. It's at this point that I tweeted out, is this movie offensive to Canadians? Because I found it offensive to Canadians.
I don't want to die in Canada, to Josh Korngut, managing editor of Dread Central, in front of the pod, and he was like, fuck you, to me. Which was very funny. But the pacing is so fucked in this movie. Because I was like, I thought that him becoming the walrus was like the climax of the movie. I thought that was like the final act, but no, he becomes
Me too.
a walrus.
I thought that was gonna be the final like
and
reveal.
Then it's just like the girlfriend and the best friend trying to find him, but it's not done in an interesting way whatsoever. Like, none of the conflicts about him being a cheating asshole, it's never really done. It doesn't go anywhere. And like, I think, again, I like the beginning a lot with this interesting dynamic of like this arrogant podcaster and this weird old guy. And I was like, oh, this is going to be one of those like really interesting, like kind of musings that a guy talking about like being a mad scientist kind of situation, and it'll be one of those kind of chamber pieces. And then it just got a little weird black and white flashbacks and like flashback scenes, and it just felt like such a movie where they loved the idea but they didn't know how to execute it, and they executed it in probably one of the most boring ways possible, which is wild to say about a movie about a guy gets turned into a fucking walrus and his name is Wallace. and he gets turned into a walrus. And he lives in a zoo.
And he lives in a zoo. Listeners, the tweets. So, when I'm at work, I'm not able to have my phone. And so I'll come out to lunch and I'll check my phone at that time. And sometimes she does. And so I come out at lunch and I have Tusk is something. Wait, his name is Walrus and he becomes a walrus?
Because again, I watch things while I work. And because I tried to watch this last night when I was stoned and I fell asleep. It wasn't the movie's fault. It was purely my fault. But yeah, I love leaving Terry a little messages to come back to at the workday. Well, because I was trying to figure out who the fuck that guy was, and I was like Johnny Depp, and I was like, I'm sorry, what? And his daughter's in it too.
His daughter's in it, which is
Harley
I think that she and Kevin Smith's daughter is also in it. They're the two clerks at the counter. Mm-hmm. And there's like a spin-off involving them, Yoga Hosers, and Johnny Depp is in it, and those two characters are in it.
Very specific brand of person, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, and I'm not trying to say that he's a bad person. I just think his humor is not for me. I think he's very much the kind of guy that's like, look at all these weird, quirky characters. I haven't seen Clerks, so I don't know if it's Clerks is better or where that falls within this whole scenario, but I know that he just likes to create all these characters that all exist in the same universe, and it's one of those kinds of kind of comic book douchebag kind of scenario. What?
The wildest part about this movie, though?
It's
an A24 movie.
Huh. Good for them.
And XYZ.
A24. Look. They upped their game, but I also want them to make more
A24 sure upped their game.
They have The Whale coming out, but that's not even... That's a whole other fucking nightmare of a situation. But I want more movies like this. They swing for it, and it wasn't the most successful movie in my opinion, but it's kind of weird. Do more of that, A24. Fuck elevated horror.
There's some gross points. There's a moment where Wallace as the walrus, he his neck goes inside his skin suit, and I went, oh, that is so gross. It was so gross looking the way that
Howard
his
neck is in the suit, and he's teaching him how to fight as a walrus. I think there are some really interesting moments where yeah, and when he pulls him into the water and he sees all the other previous walrus experiments in the water. I just think there was so much more they could have explored there instead of just a gag. I think they really could have made something even super fucked up and weird. I just think they were it's a funny gag, and I'm but you could have taken it a step further, because it is a funny gag, but there's some interesting stuff that you're introducing here that you throw away to have Johnny Depp on the screen for no fucking reason. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I even... Yeah, I feel I don't know. I felt like it's two different movies. There's a movie that is elevated for a Kevin Smith movie, and then it's at the midpoint he goes back to some of his worst impulses. And he doesn't pay off any of the things, because one of the things that I noticed when I made a note of is that when he is recording his podcast with, by the way, Haley Joel Osment as his podcasting host. When he's talking with him, they're showing a video of a guy that they're calling Kill Bill Kid, because the kid is swinging a sword and ends up hacking off his leg with really bad CG blood, by the way. Justin Long's Wallace talks about how, well, it's kind of fucked up. He's but now he's famous. He has a ton of hits. He did this, and now, he's famous. And I was okay, so we're setting this up so that, maybe by the end of it, we're going to pay that off with this walrus suit. Hey, look, you're a fucking walrus, but now you got all these hits. But no, we don't even really do that. There's no payoff to that moment. That's a Chekhov's moment right there that doesn't end up getting paid off in any stretch of the imagination. He just ends up...
He's in a zoo? That's all they did to him? They just put him in a fucking concrete zoo? That was I was no attempts to get him out of that thing. No, nothing. I needed at least to see an x-ray of what he looks like underneath all that skin. I had so many questions.
Me too.
I'm glad I finally saw it.
So many questions.
So now that I can say that I saw it.
Yeah.
but it definitely does not.
Oh, me too.
I tweeted, Tusk is sure a movie, and so many people are like, are you sure it's even a movie? And I was like, honestly, you're not wrong. Like, it definitely just kind of feels like a bunch of ideas sort of strung together.
What's also funny is, like, while the movie in that first half of the movie, I was really jiving with it, and I was like, Cass, I kind of want to see my roommate. I was like, I kind of want to see Yoga Hoosers now, like the sequel. And by the end of it, I was like, no, I don't.
My statement.
I take that back.
Thank you.
I don't want to see it.
But
So,
we are
this one
ending our
wasn't a winner
horror
for me.
comedy series on a high note next
No.
week. Terry, what movie are we watching next week?
We sure are. Oh my gosh, we are watching Tragedy Girls, a movie that I absolutely love and I've written an article about, and it's so queer, and I will fight anyone that says it's not queer because it's very queer.
I haven't seen it yet, so I'm very excited to watch it.
And I can't wait to talk about
I
it.
bought it on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
I have it. Just haven't seen it yet,
I'm so excited.
so I'm very excited.
It's really good. I cannot wait.
So on
but
Monday,
who are we
we
chatting
were chatting
with
with
on Monday,
Pierre
Mary Beth?
Sagaradis, pardon me if that is the incorrect pronunciation, who is the filmmaker behind the film Two Witches, which I talked about just a couple of weeks ago on the podcast. And he brought with him The Devil's Advocate, starring Keanu Reeves and Al Pacino and Charlize Theron. Good for her.
And Charlize Theron,
So
a very baby-faced.
we haven't had the conversation
Charlize
yet, but I
Theron.
bet it's going to be great.
Very baby-faced. I'm really excited to chat about this movie. I've been watching it because it is a little long. It's 2.5 hours, so I've been watching it sort of like interspersed over the last few days. And I cannot wait to talk with him. We'll verify how to pronounce his last name, so we apologize,
Y'all can hear
Pierre,
my
if
story about this
we
movie that I
butchered
thought was a fever
today.
dream,
But
and I've realized it's actually not a fever dream. So, thumbs up. All right, listeners. So you've heard from us, but we want to
can't
hear
wait.
from you. Did you watch a film, read a book, or play a video game that we talked about this week and have thoughts? Do you have suggestions for things we should be covering? Send us an email at scarredforlifepodcast@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us directly on Twitter. I am at MBMcAndrews. And of course, don't forget to follow the podcast on Twitter.
And I'm a Gaily
at
Dreadful.
Scarred Podcast.
And please don't forget to review, rate, subscribe, and sign up for our Patreon, because next month we are going to be giving you not only Fresh Wounds, but we're also going to dig into a little mini-sode on Barbarian.
Yeah.
So get signed up for it.
Really cute. And then you can see my
Because you could also
Christian
watch
Couple
this, and you can
shirt.
see my really cute
And
Josh
my
shirt.
my hands where I ripped off most of the nails on this one and haven't
The
done it
two
quite yet
genders.
on this one. Woo! What?
Oh no.
Give me time.
you
Or I'll
time,
go and
right?
get them taken off professionally
Give
like
you
I
time.
should have. But who cares? Details. Become a patron. Thanks a lot. Anyway, thank you to Eric Power
Please.
for our artwork. Thank you to Sean Keller for our music. Thank you everyone for listening. Please stay safe out there, but most importantly, stay creepy.
And until next time.